My name is Brian. I'm doing a review on my Kia EV6 GT line. I've had the car for probably about a year now. It was previously owned, and I kind of want to go through the backstory because I wasn't necessarily born with the electric binky in my mouth, or was totally sold on the electric idea. Squash any confusion. This is not a guitar video. It started with basically a Honda Accord. I had a hybrid. It's a beautiful car. I really liked it. It was just amazing that I could get like 60 miles per gallon range on the car, far less gas put in the car. And I was so sold on the idea that came available for me to get a Honda Clarity. Now, if you haven't seen this, I'll put a picture up for you. Now, for me, I don't know about you guys, but these cars are pretty expensive. Most people can't afford them. That includes myself. It's really kind of out of the range. But I found this Honda Clarity. It turns out there's some hail. So there's hail damage. The dealership was going to fix it, and they ended up being able to negotiate with me. So I was able to trade in. It turns out my Accord got hail damage, so I got insurance money for that. A lot of shells moving around. I was able to get this Honda Clarity, I guess. Now, this car was a plug-in hybrid, which means that it had 45 miles of range, and it also had a gas engine. So it kind of took away that range anxiety. But the reality is, for most people, including myself, okay, quiet on the set. Okay, sorry about the interruption. So anyway, my wife came home. Most quiet on the set, please. Okay, we're recording. Hi, sorry, my wife walked in. Anyways, where was I? I was able to get this Honda Clarity. Most people don't. Quiet on the set, please. Okay. So anyways, most people don't drive that far. Basically, they drive to work and home. And so the reality is the majority of our populace probably drive anywhere from 20 to 40 miles a day. That's most people. I know that doesn't apply to everybody, but most people, including myself, usually drive in that range. So the plug-in at my house was installed that. In fact, I would encourage you to check with your localities, because it turned out at the time my local electric company offered $1,500 to install if you could show proof that you were installing an electric charger. Basically, didn't cost me anything to do it. In fact, I made a little money doing that. So basically, I'd come home, plug it in, drive. I wasn't filling up gas maybe once a month. In fact, when I test drove the Clarity, it was kind of funny because the gas looked really low, and I went to the gas station and thought, well, if I'm going to drive this around for an hour, while I test drive it, I probably should put some gas in. I put some gas in, like 2 or 3 gallons went in, and it was full, and I was like, that was weird. And it turns out that the Honda Clarity has 7-gallon gas tanks. With 7 gallons, I wasn't filling up, but every month or so was only necessary. To carry on going forward, my son, which we had bought him a car, a Honda Civic. I kind of turned into a Honda person. My son wanted to trade in his car that we had bought him, which was basically new. Didn't like the payment. You know, kids these days didn't like the responsibility of that. We went to trade it in. It turns out this was like a year, like I said, a year and a half ago, and it was during the time where cars were extremely good trade-in values. I decided to check on his car. We ended up getting like $2,000 or $3,000 more than we actually paid for it. I thought, wow, let's try trading in other stuff. I was trying to, trade in, I tried to trade in my wife's car, which was a Honda Civic. She had owned it for 4 or 5 years, and they gave us about what we paid for it. It was kind of crazy. So they were giving us like 18 for her Honda Civic, which we had bought for 19. And my son's car, they were giving us a couple $1,000s more than what we paid for it. It kind of played into my idea that I did want an electric car, negotiate not only with the dealership, but my wife. I had to negotiate with her. It was such a good deal. How could I pass? I mean, it would be like throwing money away. A friend of mine, I was telling him about my wishes to get an electric car, and he worked at Ford, and he had a Mach-E, and he was very smart about it because he just called me up one day, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? I got a little break." It was his lunch break. And I was thinking of stopping by, and he stops by, and he has the Mach-E, and I was like, okay, I feel set up, and this is awesome. This is awesome. This is awesome. So we drove around. I drove it. We kind of negotiated this deal. They were giving us more than fair market value at the time. So we were getting 40 some odd thousand trade-in. The Mach-E was about 53. It was a used Mach-E, 3,000 or 4,000 miles on it, which is fine with me, actually. It's kind of like you get that bonus bump. I got the car and I brought it home. I liked the Mach-E a lot, actually. It was nice. I loved the expansive, had the full car, sunroof, very spacious. If you haven't driven an electric car, it's a different experience. I actually enjoy driving a lot because they just kind of float. It's like driving a Segway or something. The cabin's really quiet. The torque that you have at your fingertips or foot tips, a nice driving experience. So I ended up buying this car. I got it home, and shortly after that, like a couple days into owning it, plugged it in, and I got a car error on the Ford. Kind of freaked me out. I'm like, geez, I just spent 50 some odd thousand on this car, which is basically new, and problems already. So I brought it into the service. They were gracious. They took it in. They were looking at fixing it. But during that couple of days, I had time to think, which isn't always a good thing. And I kind of was like, I'm spending this kind of money. I'm just not going to deal with it. I didn't want to upset my friend, but at the same time, he should surely understand. The dealership, it was in their voices, like, kind of answer. I'd like to return it. Big sigh. Did take it back. Unfortunately, it was kind of a headache because now I didn't have a car. I undid all the trades. It was going everywhere to Kia, and I really liked the Kia. A couple of the other things I didn't like about the Ford Mach-E, was that charged it at a public network. I think it was like topping out at 50 kilowatts, which is just, if you're going somewhere, that rate is just not really conducive to long trips. It didn't charge up very good. I think it was 800 volt, and it was actually rated one of the faster charging Kias out there, or electric cars out there, besides like the Taycan, the Porsche Taycan, or Teslas. Besides the charging, state of charge, especially during the winter when I bought it, was considerably compromised during the winter. Now that's going to be true for every car. I've noticed it obviously in the Kia or any electric car. When it gets cold out, which it does, I'm in Nebraska, you're going to lose considerable range. And like I said earlier, it really doesn't tie into everything if you're just driving around town, but it is a thing. But it did seem more significant with the Mach-E, and that with the charging rate and some of the other things, and not to mention the issue I was having. I was really happy with switching up. Looked around, found one, start the negotiation process, found another one for roughly about the same price, about 53. It was a used Kia EV6 GT line, not to be confused with the GT. I found it's kind of one of the higher end of the Kias, and I just loved it. Actually, the first time I drove it, had the heads-up display, which was kind of nice, and started to go that route. Okay, with that all being said, as far as driving and moving to an electric vehicle, they just are better. They're just all around better. As far as your day-to-day maintenance, I don't have to get oil changes. I don't have to go to the gas station. I have a charger at home. I just plug in. As far as habits that I've developed, I used to plug it in every time I came home. Now I don't really technically, just the amount I drive. If I charge it up to 80 or 90%, which is suggested, you don't want to fully charge it every time. Not to mention it's slower at the top end. But usually I don't even have to plug it in but once a week or maybe twice a week, if that. Not to mention I save on a monthly basis. Not having to put in gas, the maintenance, there's basically none. And to top it off, one of the reasons I did get into kind of Hondas and Kias, some of the things I really like about it is they just drive better. It's a very good driving experience. When I was looking at cars, at one point I looked at what brands do people go back to, or why do they stick with that brand? And basically what it comes down to is that if you drive a car that you like, that does what you want and operates and is enjoyable to drive, you'll buy that brand again. Honda is really, and has been really good at that, because they give the consumer what they want. It works really well, and it's actually enjoyable to drive. I found the same thing with Kia. Don't they have the problem with the key and people being able to hack the key and get into your car? And I'm like, well, that I believe did happen, but that is not. I think they've evolved, and I think it's kind of an unsung top runner in the EV, because they produced a car that is just. It's a driver's car. It's basically a driver's car. It's fun to drive. All the functions on it are things that I actually want and need, and it's actually relatively safe. Not to mention, when you drive an electric car, it's just a better driving experience than any ICE vehicle I've ever driven. Now, having it a year now, I'm going to kind of go through and walk around the car, tell you the pros and cons and things I like and don't like, because there are a few things. I'm not a blind consumer. And my experience is limited to what I've driven, which would be the Mach-E reviews I've watched, and then the Kia EV. First off, walking around the car, there are some dings on the door. There was one on the passenger side door that was there when I purchased the car. It was pretty much the only blemish that was on the car when I bought it. The dealer said they were going to fix it. I just haven't got back. However, after having it for a while, I was golfing, came back and noticed a big ding in my driver's side. And it turns out that I actually got it on camera. I'm going to put it up on the video of the culprit. And so this is to find a predator. If you know this person, please send your information in or put it in the comments. But it was a windy day, and the guy's car door opened when he was putting his golf clubs in his car, and it dinged my car. Now, looking at the car, each side, the passenger and driver's side, both have dings. So that metal and that design is very prone to dents, not to mention it's soft metal. Some cars are not soft metal, but it's just the way it's bent and formed. That area I could see on many cars, same cars, would easily get dinged. Some cars kind of bounce back, this one does not. And so that's kind of a pain that I have to deal with. As far as the build quality of the car overall, it's actually very, very well built. The fit and finish seems really good. When you drive nicer cars, you shut the door and you can kind of feel the weight of it, and it feels like it forms real good. The cabin's relatively quiet. I really like that. Driving suspension is a little stiffer in this car, but as far as the exterior, it's a really good looking car, I would say. One of the things I noticed was on the back end of the passenger side, the metal strip, which I'll show you here, actually seems to be sudden fading, or almost looks like a metallic kind of varnish that's being developed on that. Otherwise, I really like the look of this car. I think it's considered an SUV, which I think it's kind of weird lately. Manufacturers, they don't really look like SUVs. They look like hatchbacks, or a sedan with a hatchback. which it kind of, the form factor is more kind of like that. Anyways, I think it's a really good looking car. In fact, people that I talk to just like, ask a lot of questions. People are like, what kind of car is that? It's a really good looking car. And so it is a very good looking car. So I feel very good in it, which kind of drives to the experience. The next thing I'll kind of go over is features. The one main feature that I've seen on reviews and that I have experienced, people have complained about the haptic. You have to switch over to get to the heating and cooling items on the car, or to get to the features of like media or music. And the reality is if you can't figure that out, I don't know if you should be driving. It's maybe there's a better way to do it, but what I do like to, oh, my wife's laughing in the background. But anyways, maybe you shouldn't be driving. The thing I do like about that, which is overlooked, is that all the buttons are available basically on one touch. Not to mention you can use voice commands to set the temperature or get to particular screens. And instead of pushing two buttons, which I know is majorly inconvenient for people, you still can push one. And oftentimes you can just push one if it's on the right screen. So is there a better way? I don't know. But anyways, that's one of the major complaints. User interface is maybe old school. It's not. Honey.
Yeah?
I can hear you. On the side. Okay. So anyways, the car doesn't make noise. So where was I? Taking a sip of coffee. The user interface, I guess that's what I was talking about, is kind of archaic. It does have, navigation, music. Actually, I find most of the features are pretty user-friendly, and you can get a lot done. I'm not going to go through all the specifics, or maybe I will go through some of the things I do like. But it is pretty user-friendly. Now, it does have Google CarPlay, which Teslas do not. And that is a wonderful interface if you use it. But I find that actually the in-car stuff for navigation, I can voice command navigation. It gets me to most places. It doesn't have good trip planning. That's one thing that it's short on. But again, I don't use it from day to day, but to drive around and get to where I need to go. It will tell you your range and all that stuff. And there are over-the-air updates, which has happened several times, which is a nice feature. The adaptive cruise control actually is pretty dang good. I think it's safer, even though you can take your hands off and it will drive by itself. Actually doesn't bug you totally like the Mach-E would. You can drive a good minute or so before it tells you, hey, just keep your hands on the wheel. It will do lane changing. Technology is there to help you and not take over. Self-driving is just not here. I don't care who you are, Tesla, all these guys. It's getting better. It's a lot safer. It keeps your space. It will stop. It will brake. Those are things that we just didn't have 5 years ago. So regenerative braking. And I think this is actually an awesome feature in the car. You can increase it and decrease it just with the flaps on your steering wheel. And I think that's actually a really great place to have it because I can essentially brake without even using the brake. It takes a little getting used to, but I actually love it. And I do like that it's on the steering wheel so that I can adjust it according to the situation. One thing I don't like is that the regenerative braking will reset every time you turn the car off. It's got heated seats, which I really like. It's got cooling seats, but it does have heat in the back. The hatchback is actually very functional and useful. There is a relatively good trunk space. I just use the car, so I find that it's really adequate for holding most day-to-day stuff. I work in construction, so I do have a little ladder in there and some sample books and so on and so forth, and it fits really good back there. And there are times where I have to put and get material from your local box Home Depot or Lowe's or whatnot, or my suppliers. And so actually I have been able to fit some pretty long material in there. The front trunk, I think that's just kind of, I don't know. It's just my experience that I just have no need to go into the front trunk. It is very small. So I just have my cords in there, a charging cord, and some of your basic stuff in there that maybe I would need in an emergency. But all in all, there's no reason for me to use the front trunk when I have a back trunk and I have ample space. That's just my experience. And I would gather that it's probably going to be true for most people, but there are people that probably do like the front trunk. Other items I don't like is that the headlights at night are very directional. The way they project really just kind of hit low, and I don't know that there is really a way to adjust that. If you're on a dark country road, you really notice it. You do have high beams, and that does obviously help. One thing I do like is it does have automatic high beams in the country or a rural area, and when a car is spotted in the distance by the car or whatever the AI does, it will turn the lights off, the high beams off automatically, which is really neat. And those are the kind of Easter eggs that I keep finding when I'm driving the car, is they actually thought about that and they have a solution for it. So it's really, seems like a well thought out car. The storage space, it's nice. It's actually very functional. It's kind of what you would expect. It has a real big catch-all kind of in the bottom there. It's hard to access if you are trying to grab something in there while you're driving. It's really just a spot to throw stuff that will catch it. The glove box is adequate. Doesn't need to be anything special. And actually, you could put gloves in there. I might go over some of the features that are kind of novel in a way. Like they updated they have like fireplace music or just kind of relaxing music that's in the car. Just kind of fun. I listen to it every once in a while to keep you calm, to keep you calm, to keep you calm. They have voice memos that you can record, a little reminder of some sort if you want. But I find when you're driving, you really just want to be able to push the gas. And this car actually is just so much fun because I can pretty much pass anybody if I want to, responsibly. Other features. Hey, puppy. Come here. Okay, some other features. It has a USB for your phone. It hookups on the side of the back seats. USB-C, I think it is, which is nice. It actually charges pretty fast through the cord. You also have a little pad where you can put your phone, which actually is really nice. It has a non-slip kind of rubber thing in there. So it actually, all phones really pretty much fit in there. And so that's really nice. I like that. The cup holders are pretty adequate. I put in some aftermarket mats, which I really highly suggest. I got some pretty cheap ones from Amazon, but it does cover the floor. And so that's nice. This girl's trying to get away. You ready to vacate? Okay, there she goes. Are you going or are you staying? There she goes. Features that are kind of nice. They have ambient lighting. It's basically strictly based on the drive mode in which you're in. So there's an eco. I don't know what the modes are called. The color will change based on your drive mode, and the drive mode can be selected from your wheel. I find that I basically stay in the medium mode. The ambient lighting is actually really nice. A lot of the older cars, non-ICE vehicles, I suppose it's becoming more common, specifically in electric, but in other vehicles as well. But the overhead lights are kind of nice because they're haptic. You really just don't have to push a button, you just kind of touch it. Thing I did have troubles with, and it wasn't really clear sitting up on my rear view mirror, there are buttons that you can set up your garage door. Either I'm just slow, which is probably the case, but I looked online and was having trouble setting that up. Passenger room, actually the back seat it's very comfortable. I actually in the winter will do some Uber driving, get a lot of comments on passengers. Uh, Really good space in the back seat. Charging, that's one thing I do want to say about this car. Fantastic. I've had really good experiences with fast chargers in public on how quickly this car will take on a charge. I think I've seen it up to 250 kilowatts per hour plus. So when you add that up, really, I can't ever see being or waiting longer than 20 minutes in a public charger. It will take on basically what you could throw at it, which is not true for a lot of electric cars. The speed also and the torque on this particular model is more than adequate and more than most people. Now I want to talk a little bit about my experience of going on a long trip. I did take my car from Omaha, Nebraska to Colorado, which is it's about a 6 to 8 hour drive. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but it's got to be in the 400 to 500 mile trip. One, you visit a lot of Walmarts because a lot of the Electrify high rate charging infrastructure is at Walmart from Electrify America, which you could say when you're on a trip is a good spot to stop because it's like a huge convenience store that has every little thing that you'll need. But my experience is with this particular car, I think the rated charge is stated at from 10% to 80% is 18 minutes. And that's my experience, actually. It really takes on a good charge. So my experience is I went with my son, and maybe we did a few more stops, but the actual real life experience is that we would stop, plug it in, and go to the restroom, maybe grab a snack, come back. By the time I got back, it was ready to go. It's just a different experience. You maybe think a little more about, okay, where are we going to stop next? But besides that, it actually, driving electric is just awesome. I really like it. So what are my closing thoughts? I think I've said it multiple times that I think it's really a well-made car. I think Kia actually, with little fanfare, just built a car that is usable by consumers and is very comparable to any ICE type car out there. The price tag is steep. With that being said, you do save a lot on maintenance and all that stuff, gas, and all that stuff. I think Kia's kind of, without a lot of fanfare, put out a car that's really a good driving car. It's a good looking car. If you look at the Model Ys, I just think those are super ugly. I'm sorry. They look like little... I don't know. They're just... I think they're ugly. You know, their prices have gone down on the Teslas, and I could have got a Tesla really for the same price. However, I'm not disappointed with this car or feel envy in any way. Not to mention, I like the styling. I like and value being somewhat unique and having something that's not the same as everybody else. You know, everybody and their brother's getting a Tesla, and I just think they're plasticky. I have a friend that has a Tesla, and the minimalism, the fit and finish, just doesn't really impress me. Not to mention, they have some cool features on Teslas, but they're just hard to get to. I don't need my car to make a fart sound. Teslas do that. Bravo. Their self-driving is a little better, but they actually a la carte that, and you have to pay through the nose to get anything better. And to me, that's just not worth it. I think Kia actually has upped their game tremendously and has a global view of all that. And so Anyways, I would buy a Kia again in a second. I think you'll find over time that prices, like all technology, is going to continue to decrease slowly to where it is parallel with all cars are expensive. I have a truck. I mean, you can buy a truck for $100,000. It just blows me away. I really thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I am kind of getting started. Even if you don't like me, just subscribe anyways, because if you can change somebody's life with a finger, you should do it every time. Every time, if your finger can help somebody by going like this, you should do it no matter what. Even if you don't like them, just do that. You should do that.